Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tales from the Fandom. It is the month of September, and each week this month we have a special guest host. Today's guest host is Justin Zenger from the Zeng This Podcast, and he has brought along with him a recurring guest from his podcast, Aric Berg, to talk about a number of different fandoms. And the fandoms that they cover are some that have not been touched on Tales from the Fandom before. So I'm very excited for you all to listen and hopefully enjoy this podcast episode. After this podcast is over, be sure to give Zeng This a listen. They've got a lot of great podcast episodes out there, and some of them have me on it. So if you like me, you may like the Zeng This Podcast. We're basically like best friend podcasts. We cover a lot of the same stuff, just at different times and in different ways, but I love the Zeng This Podcast. Ellie and Zenger are great, and I just wanted to say thank you so much to Zenger for stepping in and being a guest host. I really appreciate it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tales from the Fandom. I'm sure you're wondering, wait, that's not David Ginsburg, it's me, Zenger, from the Zeng This Podcast. I'm taking over this episode to help out my friend David and do a takeover episode. But not only am I bringing myself for my podcast, but I'm also bringing our regular third mic, our Nintendo expert, Aric.
Hello.
Yes, he has joined me as my subject for the fandom discussion, as David normally does. So, with him being on, welcome, sir. And I guess
thank you.
You're a Nintendo expert, but oddly enough,
I'm not talking Nintendo tonight.
You are not. But if you do want to hear him talk Nintendo, there will be multiple plugs for my show. Sorry, David and fans, but yeah, you can check him out over on the Zeng This feed for most of our E3 episodes. He's normally our Nintendo guy, and every now and then pops up for a Simpsons episode or something like that.
But now, Simpsons, will be
Simpsons,
about
yeah,
that.
Simpsons. You did mention so we have picked 3 fandoms that you are into, sir,
yes,
that we're going to kind of discuss and go over. And oddly enough, I'm into them too, so this is going to be fun. And some of them I've never gotten a chance to talk about on Zeng This, so that's exciting. But just how about you give us sort of what got, I guess, whichever one you want to start with, and what got you into that fandom.
Okay, so...
See, I don't know where you're starting, folks, so cool. This would be exciting.
All right, well, I'm going to start with something I have been... So, as Justin said, I've usually been on his podcast as a Nintendo guy, but I was on one episode as a Simpsons guy, and
yes,
that's actually the first one I'll start with. I actually remember watching the very first episode of The Simpsons.
Oh, and oddly enough, sorry to interrupt, oddly enough, all of your fandoms have some relevance in current news and stuff, too.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So we will get to that, each of those.
We'll get to those. So Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire aired in December of 1989. I was a young kindergartner. My mind was open to all sorts of whatever the world was thrown at me, and impressionable.
Unfortunately, The Simpsons was on.
And very fortunately, The Simpsons made a huge impression at that tender age. Yeah, I remember watching it, and I've been a fan ever since, and I would say maybe even, Nintendo's a huge part of my life, but this might be the fandom that has made up more of my personality and who I am and what I do more than anything, for better or for worse.
I, as somebody who grew up on The Simpsons as well, I can definitely agree with that for myself.
Yes.
Futurama, I feel, though,
Yep.
and Futurama, I feel, is a better series beginning to end.
Absolutely.
Simpsons, though, has a huge influence on my humor.
I will 100% agree with you on that.
And a lot of that stuff.
Futurama was there was no waste with Futurama.
No,
not that there's wasted Simpsons. But
there
because it's kind of ongoing. It's sort of like, hey, we can kind of do whatever we want. But Futurama was a very tight narrative that ties back to episode 1. 5 episodes later, or they put things in season 2 that come up, several seasons later. So they know what they're doing. They have a roadmap for that. This Simpsons is more just a free flowing, let the open road take you where it may.
Yes, it most definitely is. So, who would be your favorite character in the Simpsons cast?
Favorite character? If I had to go, okay, so my favorite.
I was about to say, I'm going to make this fun now. Let's break this down as main family and resident of Springfield, or resident of World of Simpsons.
Sounds good.
Just make this fun.
My favorite Simpson, it's got to be Homer. Homer is just, he's the best. He's an idiot, but he's also, in some ways, he's a savant. I mean, he says things that are so stupid, they're witty. So witty, they're stupid. And yesterday I was actually at a work lunch, and I felt like I had nothing to add to the conversation. I wanted to add, Scooby-Doo can do-do, but Jimmy Carter is smarter. I did not get the opportunity to say that, although that could have changed the rest of my life. Who knows?
Could have
made an impact, but stuff like that. I mean, Homer's great. I know when the show started, I would have said Bart because I was in kindergarten. Bart was a fourth grader, and I was like, "Whoa, he's a fourth grader. He's the coolest kid around." And there was an episode where he like pulled his pants down, took a picture of his butt with a camera, and now I'm like, I'm old enough to be Bart's dad. So, no, definitely Homer's my favorite family member. If I had to go not family, I wrote a few things down here, and it was really tough, but I'm going to have to go with Mr. Burns.
Mr. Burns?
I am a huge Mr. Burns fan. I love his ways of talking, fiddlesticks, and just being completely out of touch with everything and being rich and evil and, of course, getting shot by Maggie. Spoiler alert.
Yes,
from 20.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think almost 30 years ago. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm a huge Mr. Burns fan.
So on that, a few things with that. One, and this is something interesting. I know from watching commentaries. I mean, listening to the commentaries or watching the shows and stuff like that. And I know you're a big fan. And I know a lot of the Simpsons writers said that they were the same way when they were younger, or that they were the same way, that they slowly. That's why Homer's kind of changed. Was the writers themselves were like, oh my gosh, we're Homer,
sure.
or it was always a shocking thing when they became quote unquote Homer's age,
right? Writing
for the show. So is that something as you get older you're feeling that's
yes.
maybe that you're relating with him more?
Absolutely. Canonically, Homer's 38 years old,
mm-hmm.
and I'm 34, and I'm sitting there thinking, my gosh, I am 4 years away from being Homer Simpson's age. However, canonically, he's also his license. I know they've kind of changed his age several times, but throughout most of the series, it showed that he was born in 1955, I believe, which was the year my mom was born. Mm-hmm. So I remember one time sharing something. It was like on his birthday. It was like his 60th birthday. My mom was like, "Hey, I'm born the same year as Homer. I'm in good company," or something like that. So it's weird thinking how Homer is. If it was real in real time, he would be my parents' age. But in the canon of the show, we're almost his age. So
yes.
But yes, I definitely feel myself relating more. Even though I don't have kids, I feel myself relating more to Homer. And just a guy trying to get by in the world.
Mm-hmm. As for the Mr. Burns, I know that we share a lot of stuff in the sense of our likes and our humors and everything. Mr. Burns is also one of my favorite characters as well.
Yes. And
something I actually have started doing again recently, and I don't know why this popped back in my mind, but I will since we both work at the same place, when I pick up the phone at work, I will legitimately now start going. I will go ahoy.
Ahoy.
So yes. That picks up from when he discovered how to use the phone. This was a fun thing from the commentary, and also relevance to stuff now. That's the original way they wanted people to answer the phone was ahoy, and then the response was ahoy hoy.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, in I think it's Geico ads where it has him sitting at the Alexander Graham Bell or whoever sitting at the theater, and he gets a call, he picks it up saying ahoy.
He says ahoy.
So yes, and that is once again showing Mr. Burns being completely out of touch with stuff, and I just like that, so that's why I picked that up. Another thing, I love the one episode where he's like keeps telling the one baseball player to shave his sideburn.
How much have I told you to shave those sideburns? Who was it? Was it Mattingly? I think
so. Yeah, it was Mattingly.
I mean, I can sing the song, but they don't mention. I remember. I think because they say Mattingly and Canseco, and yes, and Jose Canseco was getting the fire out of the stuff out of the woman's furniture out of the house that was on fire. It was Don Mattingly who didn't have the sideburns that needed to be shaved because everyone else gets a mention of what was happening to them. Whenever someone asks me what I want to eat and I don't know, I always say steamed toast and a dodo egg.
Another thing that's brought up a lot is steamed hams.
Steamed hams, yes. I actually had Skinner on here. If I was between Skinner, Milhouse, and Mr. Burns is my favorite non-family member to talk about.
And that's the other thing. I feel The Simpsons truly has leaked into our pop culture lexicon of stuff, because I know people that say everything's coming up blank.
Everything's coming out Milhouse.
Yeah, which is originated from that. There's so many other things.
Even Met. Met is like the most common, kind of neutral, I don't care thing. And it originated on The Simpsons. It is a Simpsons original.
Once again, Embiggen was another one. Embiggen.
Cromulent.
Yes. Embiggen recently got into the Oxford Dictionary, and that was mentioned on a great episode of The Simpsons where it's the you're going to correct me on this, I know you are, but it's you're going to be able to describe more of the episode than I am off the top of my head. It's the one where they're finding out about the founder.
Yes, Jebediah Springfield.
Yes.
And he was Hans Sprungfeld, pirate.
Yes, and it's during the reenactment, he says, I'm Biggin's the smallest child, and it cuts to the teachers, and they're like, I didn't even know Biggin was a word.
That's a perfectly cromulent word.
So once again, great additions to our, lexicon and everything like that The Simpsons has done. But so since the next thing I have here is to what shows, books, or games would you recommend, since obviously Simpsons is a show, what other mediums would you recommend to people to check out?
Well, I put a couple things down when I was putting notes earlier. So if you want like specific shows and stuff, I guess some of my personal favorites.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I was about to say, go ahead.
The first of the whole episode, I would say the first 10 seasons are my favorite, but I do love that season like 3 to 10, which are just like the golden ages. My personal favorites are season 7 and 8. Some of my favorite episodes are Homer's Enemy with, of course, Frank Grimes, Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie, 22 short films about Springfield.
That was a great one.
All those episodes, basically any episode in seasons 7 and 8, I will be like, yes, those are my favorite episodes. The Springfield Files, of course, with Mulder and Scully, and the Mysterious Voyage of Homer, or whatever is in Spanish, with where he eats the pepper and he goes.
And it's got
Coyote, Space Coyote. Homer has to find his soulmate. I mean, any of those episodes are great. I actually found, so there's all sorts of, on social media, there's a lot of different channels, handles, users, etc. I follow. A fun one that I actually wanted to bring up, and being a fan of The Simpsons when they first became really big, and he might be on Twitter, but I know he's on Instagram as Bootleg Bart. And this guy, so for people who might be too young or weren't fans of The Simpsons, early 90s, the first couple seasons, The Simpsons were everywhere, whether they were legally supposed to be there or not. And you could walk into any store and you would find Rastafarian Bart, and you would find Bart bombing Saddam Hussein during the Persian Gulf War. You would find George H.W. Bush saying,
"Eat my shorts,"
or because they met too on one of the best episodes ever. But you could find any number of unlicensed caricatures of Bart Simpson on shirts. There's even a Portlandia episode about it not too long ago, not in the last season, but I think it was like the season before that, making fun of that. But this guy, Bootleg Bart, archives these. He finds pictures of them. I think he might buy some, I'm not sure, but they're great to just have randomly pop up in my feed and just see these random, like, hey, it's Jamaican Bart going, hey man, or something like that. I myself had a shirt of Bart Simpson saying, Virginia is for lovers, man. Yeah. So that is a good channel that I like to follow. What was the one you told me about where it's like
Simpsons film?
Yes.
It's on Twitter. It's like Simpsons a film or something, and it's 3 images from different episodes of The Simpsons.
And they kind of give a summary of a film, essentially.
What they basically do is they name a film, and then they have 3 or 4 screenshots, or just one screenshot, something to where it's a non-spoiler spoiler. Like if you see the movie, you're like, oh my gosh, that's perfect.
Well, they did one for Mission Impossible Fallout, which came out today.
When this is being recorded.
Yes, while this is being recorded. And I haven't even seen it, but I've seen the other Mission Impossible movies. And I'm like, yes, that can go for any of them.
so that's some great stuff with that. As for video games, what would be your... If you had to pick one Simpsons game?
I gotta go. So if you want a good one, I gotta go with the Simpsons arcade game that Konami made. It was fun. 4 players. You get 4 chasing after Maggie and the Diamond. It's a ton of fun. I loved it. I haven't played it in years. Actually, I think it had a re-release on Xbox Live Arcade.
It did, because I have it on Xbox Live.
And I played it with a friend of mine from college, and it was the first time I had played it since I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I was like, this is amazing. So I owned Bart versus the Space Mutants, which is the first NES game, and it was incredibly hard. It was back in the days when games were either hard for the sake of being hard or a little convoluted, and this was kind of both. So I could never get past the first level because you had to spray paint like every red object purple or something like that. And there were some things which you didn't think you could spray. It was hard. But as a kid, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever because I'm Bart Simpson for one level in a video game.
All right. So I mentioned earlier that all of your stuff you picked has some relevance into current pop culture and stuff like that. Well, there is an upcoming series on Netflix called Disenchanted.
Super excited for that.
Disenchantment. And
yeah, that's going to be great.
So walk us through kind of what this, or what we've seen, and kind of what your thoughts are initially on this.
Well, it's sort of like Simpsons is modern day. You got Futurama, which is sci-fi. You get Disenchantment, which is fantasy. Mm-hmm. And you have this princess who, what is it? She's like leaves to like find, I guess, herself or whatever, and so she's very much a tomboy. She's
like bestowed. I think. Well, once again, this hasn't come out yet, so this is just some trailer. She's like bestowed to somebody,
right?
And she's like an alcoholic because she's like an alcoholic because she feels her life is like.
And Eric Andre's her demon, her personal demon, and there was the little gremlin who who a lot of people, and I think I agree with this,
it is Bart,
but it's basically Bart, but not Bart. So
Elfo.
And it seems like it's got a lot of voice actors from Futurama and The Simpsons, but it's also got a brand new cast for the main characters. I'm excited. I mean, you can't go wrong. And the whole it's Netflix, so the whole season's going to drop at once. So
maybe. I don't know. They've been doing this split thing recently.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, either way, it won't be like one episode or a couple. It'll be a chunk of episodes, and I will surely, in an afternoon or an evening or whatever, I will surely sit down and watch them all in one go, pretty much, probably.
Yeah, so
I'm very excited about that.
I am too, as someone who, of course, is like The Simpsons, has like Futurama. This is something I'm also very excited about, and I like the medieval setting. It seems fun, and
absolutely.
And I'm very excited about this. So that is the of course, Disenchantment, and if you have Netflix, that's definitely somewhere to find that.
Absolutely.
And Simpsons is something you can find on FX. August 17th for Disenchantment. Right. As for Simpsons, FX Now,
FX
or
app
just
or whatever.
Go get
Simpsons World, every episode up through, like, even the new seasons, like the next day, it's like they're up on there, and you can watch any one. And mine, I'm usually in those seasons 7 or 8. If there's nothing else on, I'm gonna pop on Who Shot Mr. Burns.
That's always a good one. All right, so moving on to your next fandom. What would the next one be, sir?
So the next one I am going to talk about is Dragonball.
This is going to be a complicated one, people, because I'm a huge fan. I have been deprived of talking about this on Zeng This for no other reason than I have not found the proper time to do it, and we will end the episode with a tease of stuff to come. But once again, this has future implications, but do go on with what got you into this fandom.
So what got me into this fandom?
Even though I think this is a very simple answer.
Actually, it's it has a roundabout way, but it gets there. So 1996, I discover RPGs through the release of Super Mario RPG for the Super Nintendo.
And there's your Nintendo reference, everyone.
Yep,
second one,
so
actually.
Here we go.
Second reference.
Then, because of that, I'm like, this RPG is just like, it was like being introduced to a wonderful drug. I don't want to say that, and don't do drugs, kids. But it was wonderful. I was like, I need more of this. So, I was reading in a Nintendo Power or something. They're like, "Oh, this is made with in conjunction with SquareSoft before they were Square Enix, makers of Final Fantasy, which I heard of, and Chrono Trigger." And in that same issue, they talked about Chrono Trigger, and I started looking at it, and I was like, "Oh, this game looks really cool. It's about time travel." So I get Chrono Trigger, rent it, fell in love with it, and that was back in 1996. It's 2018. To this day, Chrono Trigger is still my favorite game. And then in the article talking about Chrono Trigger, they're like, the characters were designed by Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z. And I was like, ooh, what's that? So I happened to be visiting. So this is back when Sci-Fi was a premium channel. Like, not everyone had. Yeah. It was kind of like the Disney Channel at the time where you got like special weekends or whatever. So my grandma had Sci-Fi. And when we went to go visit her, I could never sleep well. Like, I always woke up super early, and I would get up and watch Sci-Fi. And so one morning I got up, and they were airing the original like 60 episodes that they dubbed of Dragon Ball Z. And I remember it was the episode where he fell off of Snake Way and he had to find his way out. And I was like, wait, this is that show they were talking about. And so anytime we would visit my grandma for a couple of years, I would purposely like get up early and just watch these scattered episodes of Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
And it always seemed to be around Snake Way. Because I remember there was the one where he met the Snake, Princess Snake.
Yes.
And I feel like there's another one, and like I had no context.
He falls off and he goes to hell.
Right. That was the first one, or as they call it, the Home for Infinite Losers.
Yes.
Hifil, whatever.
Hifil.
So then I remember and this is like, kind of very early pre-internet, like we didn't have internet. So it's sort of like, it was like, I wanted to see more of this. Well, then Toonami started airing it. Yeah. And I think like a lot of people in the US, that was their true introduction.
That was mine.
And it was great because they had those 60 episodes. And for the first year it was on, that was all they had. And I remember you'd always they were on Namek. Frieza was coming. Goku had like just gotten to Namek, and that was it. It would end, and it would come back
it was
to
the Ginyu fight.
Yeah,
fighting the Ginyu.
I think they just defeated Goldo.
I thought it was like Raccoon had basically like
everybody. They defeated Goldo because he was, even though he could freeze time, he was the weakest one. But yes, then Raccoon was kicking everyone's butt. And then Goku like just got there, and it's like, but what's gonna happen with Frieza? And I remember it zoomed in on his face, and that was all we had for a year. Then they started dubbing the episodes. I feel like that was a longer time almost. It was because that was my freshman year of high school when they started doing it, and I remember it was my sophomore year because all of a sudden one day I made some random mention of Dragon Ball Z to a friend of mine. I think he went even like do something that night. It was like a Tuesday or whatever, and I was like, I can't because. Just to kind of joke, I was like, I can't because Goku's fighting Frieza for the first time. And then this girl turns around, she goes, wait, you watch Dragon Ball Z? And this other guy goes, wait, you guys watch Dragon Ball? And all of a sudden, we were like, this is like in my Algebra 2 trig class. And everyone's like, half the class is like, oh my God, you watch Dragon Ball? And we were talking, like everyone was watching it. So, yeah. Love it.
So I mean, not to derail too much onto myself, but yes, mine was basically the same way. I think I was more in middle school at the time, though, and yeah, it was just kind of something to where I don't know what it was, but just one day, no one knew what Dragon Ball Z was. Next day,
it was
everyone knew what Dragon Ball Z was.
Overnight,
yes.
You would go to toy stores, and all of a sudden you see Goku action figures and a lot of Yamcha ones for some.
Well, the thing I loved is that they like had no like restriction on the toys, so you'd get like Super Saiyan versions of characters, and you're like, who the heck's this?
Who's that?
And this is like the infancy of the internet too.
Majin Buu, and he's like, who's this big fat thing? What the hell is that?
And then you get like the games from Japan where you had to do weird stuff with your PlayStation to make them play. I remember those. I remember Final Bout.
Oh yeah,
it's confusing. So I'm gonna throw a curveball at you again with favorite characters.
All right.
So I guess who is your favorite from like the main good guys, and who's your favorite main bad guy?
All right. So
I missed this on The Simpsons. I forgot to say underrated characters.
I definitely.
But there's no one in The Simpsons who's underrated.
Everyone is like perfectly rated. No, everyone is perfectly rated in The Simpsons.
Fantastic.
So I would say my favorite character is Vegeta.
That is the correct answer.
The Prince of all Saiyans. I mean, Vegeta really truly undergoes the most character development in the series. He goes from planet destroying bloodthirsty villain to father, husband,
to planet destroying bloodthirsty,
right? But with restraint and with things to love and care for,
which he realizes almost too late.
And he's great. I love me some Vegeta. My favorite villain. So main villain. I mean, I gotta go Frieza. Frieza's great. And
okay.
He's not the most powerful. He's not the.
Does Super factor into this?
Super does factor a little bit into it, but I did like Frieza before because he was the first time. So kind of going back to like, I think part of what made Dragon Ball Z so popular was, I feel like American cartoons up until that point, the good guys always won. Didn't matter how tense they tried to make it. The good guys always won. Goku died. The main character died like on the second episode, and it's like, and obviously yes, they have the Dragon Balls, they can wish people back, but still, like, everyone could die, anyone could die, and I think it really showed that villains were like, they were actual threats. I mean, genocidal. I mean, look, they killed everyone on Namek, and I think that's why I like Frieza. He's so bloodthirsty, and he's almost like unassuming because he's so small and he's got that kind of high voice. And the original dub almost made him sound feminine.
Yeah.
Now he just kind of is. I think they made him a little because he's male, but then I think the color scheme and the voice, it kind of made him a little more androgynous, and which I actually kind of liked.
I did too. I liked it too.
But I do like his current English voice actor, but his Japanese voice actor is the best. Oh! Every time I hear that laugh, I crack up. So yes, I loved him in Super too. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know if that had a factor on it.
That definitely had a factor. Underrated
characters. Do you feel there's an underrated character?
I don't know if he's underrated, but I love my boy Krillin. Krillin's so great, and here's why I love Krillin, because in a world of Saiyans and Mechians and pink demon gods and other demons and all sorts of stuff, he's just a human. He's a human who he's outranked by all these people, but I mean, he could destroy the planet if he wanted to. Ultimately,
true,
your average Joe, he would just mop the floor with it. He could defeat a whole army if he wanted to. And then I loved in Dragon Ball Super, his taco shirt, just red with yellow text, tacos, and I want one of those shirts really bad. And I love me some Krillin. So,
all right. Okay, so we went over villain, we went over underrated character, favorite character, which obviously the correct answer is Vegeta. So before we get into books or games or stuff like that, or any other ancillary stuff, English or Japanese dub?
I love the English dub.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I don't know, because Sean Schemmel, who does Goku, and David, I can't remember the guy who does Vegeta. They do a lot of things. Sabat, Chris Sabat. It's not even David. It's
also,
Chris
Piccolo. And yes. He's in everything.
Yep. They're awesome, and I love them. But the Japanese voice actors, I remember the first time, because it's a woman who's done Goku's voice since Dragon Ball.
Yes.
And it was really
Chris
hard
Sabat.
to get used to. Yes.
For the there is for the Funimation dub, which is the
that's what's going on right now.
Yeah, no offense, that is the only dub.
Yeah.
I don't count Ocean.
Yeah, Ocean and there's Harmony Gold too, which is even worse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
But and I can't think of her name. The woman who does Goku's voice is amazing, and now it's I picture that with Goku now. That high-pitched voice. In all of it, because I've been going back and watching Dragon Ball on Hulu, and it's like I said, it's the same woman who's done it from that first episode of that, and it's the same voice. It's the same voice Goku had when he was a little kid, and it's the same voice he has when he is going Ultra Instinct and becoming the most powerful being in the universe. So, and it's just great. I love hearing Goku's voice as this high-pitched voice, and it's first it was really hard to get used to. It was an acquired taste. It was like drinking coffee or beer or something like that. It's like you might not like it at first, but once you get used to it, you love it. So I think it's great. So and I've watched so much Super in Japanese, I think I got really used to it. So it was kind of the first thing I watched. I think was when Toonami started showing the English dubs of Dragon Ball Super, that it took some getting used to back to the English voices, which I grew up with, which was really weird. But so I like them both, but I think I got to give it to the Japanese.
I appreciate both of them, and I do agree with you. But I like the English ones because it's reading subtitles sometimes for me is just it's one of those things where I feel like I'm reading that more than I'm watching the action sometimes.
I guess for me it's stuff. With subtitles, I don't mind them usually, but something like Dragon Ball you kind of don't want to be reading because you want to be keeping your eyes on the action. So I can't appreciate. So I do like the English subtitles or the English voice acting without subtitles because of that. Then I can kind of focus on listening and watching the action.
So for this, there's been numerous games, of course, the manga it's based on.
Yeah.
If someone what would you recommend to somebody? Either a fan or a newcomer?
So if you want a good game, you can't go wrong with Dragon Ball FighterZ. which you and I played a little bit, and it's coming out on Switch in a couple months. I have it pre-ordered, which I'm excited for. Finally get my hands on it so I can just go online and still get my butt kicked.
Yep. They just announced 2 new characters, Base Vegeta and Base Goku.
Yeah, exactly. I saw the trailers for that are pretty cool.
And there's 2 more left to announce, so who knows what those could be.
What it's going to be. I do enjoy that. The Xenoverse games are cool because you create your own characters. It's like an action RPG. I mean, it's basically like fan fiction. The game. It's amazing. It's like I'm going to make my own Namek. I'm going to make Namekian. I'm going to make my own Majin. It's going to be cool. Fun channel. Two YouTube channels I want to talk about.
I was waiting for this to come up.
So if you want a good one, as a fan of the show, Geekdom 101. This guy does amazing. I discovered him during Dragon Ball Super's run. He was amazing at like doing reviews. When they would usually in Japan have like the next 3 titles at a time come out for episodes, and as soon as that came out, he would make a video and read the title and he would do like an analysis, like, oh, what could this mean? Some episodes would be super obvious. Some would be like, whoa, what could it mean by this? Like, it could be this, it could be that. So it was a really fun channel to watch, and it still is. He's still putting videos out, obviously, with stuff that's coming out, which we'll get to in a little bit. He's been still making videos, but especially during Super's run, I really enjoyed watching his videos and getting his insights. So now I think you know where I'm going with.
Yes,
Team 4-Star, Dragon Ball Z Abridged.
Yes.
Which is almost the best way to watch it. You can't watch it with... Okay, let me say this. They do an amazing job. Sorry if I hit the mic. They do an amazing job of telling the story and cutting out the fat, but adding their own twist. But I think you need to watch Dragon Ball Z to appreciate it.
I agree with you 100%. It is one of those things, though, to where, like, a good example of that is Ellie, who I'm sure is cursing me right now for bringing up the fact that she like, I cannot get her to watch Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
I can't. It's one of those things. I feel like there's a place in time almost to get into it.
Yep.
And if you don't meet that, it's really hard to get into it. She loves Abridged, and she admits that she doesn't get half the stuff.
Sure.
But she says she understands the story still.
Because it is, when you take out the jokes, when you take out their twist and their animation, which they're doing their own animation in a lot of the more recent episodes, and it's amazing.
Yep.
When you take that out, I mean, it's still the story of Dragon Ball. It's still on Dragon Ball Z. I mean, it's flat out.
I also kind of almost credit them with the resurgence of Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
I kind of almost want to say that, because Super wasn't out when they were doing this stuff. No. They definitely brought a lot more attention back to the fandom and breathed new life into it. 'Cause I mean, I love watching their stuff.
Well,
it's so funny.
Some people think there was even a Dragon Ball Z Abridged reference in Super. So there's a character, if you're not familiar with it, there's a character in Dragon Ball Z called Mr. Popo, and he lives on Kami's Lookout, and he's sort of like his assistant. He's like this kind of like he's got like dark pitch black skin, pointy ears, wears a turban, and he's kind of like a genie, or something like that. And in the show, he's powerful. He's more powerful than Goku as a kid when he first gets there. But, he's not anyone in the grand scheme of things too powerful. Well, in the show, they present him as being this very, like, he's like the strongest character in the entire show.
The dragon refers to him as, Master.
Master, yes. He's basically, you've seen Shinron kind of cower before Beerus and Super. That's kind of how he is revered in Dragon Ball Z Abridged. So anyway, there's all these shows of like in one of the episodes where Vegeta wrecked the hyperbolic time chamber or something like that. And
we're just to be clear, we're talking about the Abridged.
We're talking about Abridged. Yes. So he gets mad at Vegeta and throws him off of Kami's Lookout. And then in Super, there was an episode where he went in and he trained so hard it blew up, and you could see they did a close up of his eyes, which they always do in Abridged. And I remember going, was that a reference to Abridged? And then I went on to the subreddit, the DBZ subreddit, and everyone was like, wait, were they referencing his Abridged? So it's hilarious. Again, yes, you can watch it if you've never seen it, and you could totally get the gist of it. But I feel like I have such but I recommend, if you do that, going back, watching the show, and then watching, because it will add this whole new layer to it that's just absolutely amazing.
Kai. Dragon Ball Z,
yes,
Dragon Ball Kai.
There's the official way they abridged it. And They took some of that filler out.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z is notorious for having bad filler at times. Not Naruto bad worth of filler,
Right.
but still bad filler at times. And also the fights were drawn out a lot.
Let's see, 5 minutes until Namek blows up, and it was like
30 episodes.
30 episodes at least. Like,
yeah,
I think if you go to YouTube, you can search for like Goku versus Frieza full fight, and it's like a 4.5 hour long.
Now, apparently, the argument is they were fighting so fast the entire time.
Right.
And I'm like, come on.
Well, and that's like the if you go to YouTube, you can search for, because the Tournament of Power in Dragon Ball Super was 45 minutes long, but of course it was stretched out over like a third of the series basically. Yeah. But someone took all those episodes, put them back to back, and compressed it down to 45 minutes. So, because I remember the first episode got done, and then the announcer goes, only 1 minute, or there's only 44 minutes left, and everyone's like, what? That was just 1 minute? So they kind of compressed it. But then some episodes, 5 minutes would go by, and then the next episode, like, one more minute would go by. I don't think people in
Dragon Ball have a concept of time.
No, I don't think they do. So that was my thing.
Once again, is a great joke brought up in Abridged.
Yes.
By
my gosh, that really is 5 minutes. This thing is really going to blow.
Do you know what 5 minutes is? What? Do you have a watch?
Hi, I'm Goku. I'm going to deck you in the schnoz.
Oh, no, but like I said, definitely Abridged is one of the great... it is so funny. It's one of those things that I enjoy it to no end, because it is seriously like watching like a parody of my childhood.
Yeah.
Favorite show and everything.
Absolutely.
So that is definitely one of the greatest things I think that's ever been done, and it's great to watch. There's so many references in there. I'm pretty sure I say I need an adult every now and then when something stupid happens.
I need an adult.
the girl, because they have running jokes that come up in and out every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the best ongoing ones is where Goku uses the instant transmission, and it's just a pop. He just vanishes and reappears, and I think that's one of the funniest things.
Yes,
I feel like I was watching them discuss that, and they said that once they had him do that, everyone just lost it. It was so funny. And they're like, from now on, whenever he uses instant transmission, it's just a pop.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Also, I feel like they do a good job with Tien as being this just somehow... He's not one of the strongest people, but yet he just pokes the bear all the time, and it's just like this great side voice.
I love, because here's the thing, like when Dragon Ball Z Abridged, I feel like we're getting on like a Dragon Ball Z Abridged as like a separate mini fandom, which I think so.
It's part of the fandom.
It is part of it, and it's like its own little sub fandom. So because when they started, it was much more comedic. Like they would have M. Night Shyamalan come on and go, "Ooh, what's a twist?" and stuff like that. But then they started getting more serious in a way, but still in a very snarky, satirical way. And I love the where he's like semi-perfect cell, and he's like, I won't say full curse words, but he's like, F power levels, F Super Saiyans, and F yo, and he's hitting him with the triangle.
Oh look!
Oh my gosh, it's so great. It's great. Tien's good for that. He's kind of the straight man.
He is in that series, and I think he's great in the other series, because he has this like weird sort of, he goes from like being ripped beyond reason in some arcs to just being average looking.
Exactly.
And there's no explanation to it ever,
except Third Eye.
It is. So with this, so the mention of course, once again, the reference we talked about, the Tournament of Power, Dragon Ball Super is a big thing, but the biggest announcement recently, if you would not mind divulging,
it is the Dragon Ball Z, the Dragon Ball Super movie, and it's what is it? I can't remember the title. It's Broly related.
I think it's just Broly.
Is it just like Broly or something?
I think so.
Like that? Yeah.
I could look up on the internet for me, but you know what? Whatever.
And so Broly, of course, he's a character, but he's not considered canon until now.
Mm-hmm.
This apparently is going to be considered canon. He was a Saiyan who was born the same time as Goku, and as an infant, Goku had a power level of like 5, and Broly had one of like 10,000 or something like that. And he is referenced in the Tournament of Power with, was it Kale? Was she the Super Saiyan from the other? It was Kale, because there's Khalifa
and Kale.
And Kale, I think it was Kale who, yes, because it was like broccoli. Kale,
mm-hmm.
Yes, so, so this movie's coming out, Dragon Ball Super movie, It's going to introduce Broly as, and it's going to have Frieza in it, and Frieza in the trailer that was released at Comic-Con. That trailer was amazing.
Yes, it is.
I was getting ready to go to bed, and I was actually going to check the weather, and my weather app is next to Twitter, and I accidentally hit that, and that was the first thing that was in there. And I ended up, instead of checking the weather,
it was meant to do.
Instead
it was
of
meant to be.
Exactly. Instead of watching, instead of checking the weather, I ended up watching that trailer like 5 times and going, "This is the most amazing thing ever," and it needs to. I don't care if it's like you said, if it's right around the block or if it's an hour or two away. We're gonna go see it.
Yes,
We're going to see it.
So, to once again, sorry, David, to plug Zeng This, that will be a future episode. That will probably be maybe our first Dragon Ball Z episode or Dragon Ball related full episode.
Absolutely.
But I definitely do want to have that discussion with him.
Be on for that.
That's what I'm saying is you're going to be on for
Yes.
it. So I'm
let me talk, then I would tell you that you're gonna be on it.
No, I'm excited for this. Broly was like one of those over the top characters, and like he was just muscle on top of muscle. He's supposed to be
muscle.
like he is like Goku and everyone else is like, oh, we became Super Saiyans, and it's like, no, he is like the Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
Like you guys kind of tricked your way into it. You kind of just pushed yourself to it. He was born with the like, no, he is that one.
Maybe he's born with it. Maybe he's Super Saiyan.
So I'm excited because they look like they're going that way with this, and it looks like it's going to be an all out brawl too.
An all out brawl.
So that's the reference to that. So I'm excited about that, and of course, can't wait for that.
It's gonna be great.
So your final fandom.
Fandom.
We're going to be discussing. And mind you, once again, has a reference to recent events. Yes, Comic-Con had everything.
Yes, it did. This was a jam-packed Comic-Con.
It was.
It was. So the third fandom I'm going to talk about is Godzilla.
Yes,
and he's on the shirt I'm wearing.
Yes,
you all can't see this, but I'm wearing a Godzilla t-shirt.
I can verify that he is wearing a Godzilla t-shirt.
We have confirmation. Yes. So Godzilla. That is my third fandom.
All right. So what got you into this fandom?
We were at the library one night, and they had tapes to rent. You could rent like 3 at a time. And I just remember...
said we, but he's not referencing who the we is.
Yeah, my dad. I'm sorry. Okay. My dad and I were at the library.
Sorry, I just wanted to make fun of that real quick.
So you could only rent 3 movies at a time, and so he was.
I assumed it was me and him. For some reason, I'm like, how am I?
So when I was 6, you and I were at the library. So my dad and I were there, and my parents were going to rent a movie. My sister could rent a movie, and I could rent one. And I was like, "Ooh, what's this?" And my dad was like, "Oh, that's Godzilla." And I was like, "Oh, I saw him on TV one time. And it was Godzilla versus Mothra."
Oh,
and I remember
even
renting it and watching it and going, "Godzilla is my hero." And that was like in first grade, I believe. And ever since then, I have been a huge Godzilla fan, and I could not get enough because they had more Godzilla movies, and it was like every time we would go, I would have to get a new one. Or we go to, this is before we had a Blockbuster in town, and it was like more like independent.
That's a dated reference.
Right. Right. I was going to say, before we had a Blockbuster, when they were big, when they were a thing, we had like little independent run ones, and they would all have like different movies. They would all have like different ones. So like I would rent from this one, I would rent this Godzilla movie, or I'd rent this Godzilla movie from this one. And, yeah, and then I would ask for them for my birthday, or you'd find random ones in the $3 bin at Kmart or whatever. Another dated reference. And yes, it was
just full of them tonight.
Cannot get enough Godzilla. So been a fan ever since.
All right. So I'm gonna, I guess with shows and recommendations, I can do what your favorite ones are for that. But I guess this is hard to do because it's like favorite character. I'm assuming you're gonna say Godzilla. So I guess favorite.
I'm gonna go with some of my some of the other. Because obviously Godzilla is left.
I was about to say this was hard to do in the sense of that. So I guess my question is, what are your favorite other giant monsters or
so there's
characters?
the kind of Toho big 3/4. There's Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Rodan. They're kind of like the Avengers or Rodan's more like the Thanos of it, but the other ones are kind of like the Avengers, the original Avengers of the Godzilla verse. They kind of all starred in their own movies, and they all came together to take on King Ghidorah when he came in. Some of the more like, I guess, underrated monsters who only had like one-offs or were kind of more side monsters. So I love this one monster, Gorosaurus. He's kind of like a giant T-Rex-ish kind of monster. He first appeared in a King Kong movie, actually, that Toho made, King Kong Escapes. And in Destroy All Monsters, that was like the big one that brought like every Toho monster ever together. He did this amazing move. They're all fighting King Ghidorah, and he does this kangaroo kick where he gets on his tail and not Godzilla sliding on his tail.
Oh, okay.
This was like a legit, like, he got on his tail like a kangaroo does and like does this huge kick to King Ghidorah's back and just knocks him down. And I'm like, that right there is the most single badass move I think in all of Godzilla. And so he gets a pick for that. My other favorite kind of one-off monster is Hedorah, otherwise known as the Smog Monster. He was this very sort of exotic monster at the time. It was kind of when Godzilla was moving away from more like, I mean, he fought aliens at this point, but it was more like King Ghidorah was the most alien-like thing, and he was like a big golden dragon.
Yeah.
But everything else was like dinosaurs and big bugs and stuff. So Hedorah was like an alien. He was like a little microscopic alien that fed off of pollution. And the more he ate, the bigger he got, and there would be little Hedorahs, and they would come together and make a bigger one. So he eventually became Godzilla-sized, and he started like it's probably of the original series, like, but other than the first movie, which is very dark. He was like flying over and spraying out the sulfuric acid, which was just melting people into bones, or down to their bones. Mm-hmm. And it was incredibly dark compared to the rest of the Godzilla movies of the time. So, and then the movie itself had these very psychedelic sequences. They had these animated sequences, which were edited out of future American releases that are just totally bizarre and out there. And they were insane. And at the time as a kid, I had no idea about the 60s and the drug culture of the 60s and stuff like that. And now as an adult, I have a new appreciation for it. But they're so bizarre and it's so weird. And I think the director, the writer, someone got fired over it because they're like, how can we release this? And then they had to, because we're like, we have to try and recoup something. But he's a fun monster too. I enjoy Hedorah.
Sorry, I'm actually looking that one up because that one was not one that rang a bell with me, and it looks like a weird.
Yeah, he kind of is like a giant blob, like a blobby thing, and that's the thing. Like at one point, like he has, like here's the thing: Godzilla could not defeat him on his own. He tried, and like he was basically immune to Godzilla's atomic ray. He had to basically he had to team up with the humans. They built this giant device that would like dehydrate him, and it like failed. But then Godzilla could use his atomic breath to power the electric panels. That way, it was weird. That's another infamous Godzilla. You were talking about Godzilla sliding on his tail.
Yeah.
So there's another one where, and it was from this movie where Godzilla, like Hedorah, is like down. He's against the ropes. He's against the wall. He's down for the count, and he starts flying away. And Godzilla balls himself up and starts breathing his fire breath so hard that he starts flying.
That's from that?
That is from that. And he finally crashes into him, and his dorsal fins kind of hit him, and then he takes him back, and he gets him, and he dehydrates him. And it is an
just look up Godzilla flying, by the way,
yes.
online, and it's probably the weirdest thing you will ever see.
It is bizarre. It is bizarre. So that's probably, I would say that's one of my favorites. It's not my absolute favorite Godzilla movie, but it's definitely an underrated gem. It's so weird.
So that would be your
bizarre.
Underrated.
That would be my underrated.
Okay. So my next one I'm gonna go with for you. Question is, what version of Godzilla? Like, if you could rank them, I'm not talking about all 33 films, right. But there's obviously different incarnations of Godzilla. So I guess what the
70s are like. So the Showa ones, which are the original Godzilla in 54 through like 70, whatever, when Terror of Mechagodzilla was. That's probably my favorite personally, just because those were the ones I grew up on.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy those. They were, I mean, I look back now and they're so campy and so many of them are so bad, but gosh, I love them so much. They're great. And I mean, that was when Godzilla kind of went from being force of nature to disgruntled dinosaur to basically like a superhero. I mean, he was pretty much like a superhero.
He's on our side.
He is on our side, and the kids loved him. They're like, "Yay, Godzilla!" So I remember the English voice actor for this kid who was in Godzilla versus Megalon had the most annoying high-pitched voice, and that's how he wouldn't say. Everyone else would say Godzilla, and he would say Godzilla, and they would like stretch the A out. And even as a kid, I'm like, that annoys me so much.
Can he die now, please?
Yes. And there was one point where I thought he was gonna, and I'm like, please. Not advocating violence against kids.
So those ones would be your top pick.
Yeah, I would say Showa Godzilla is definitely my favorite.
So what would be your? I don't think I even have to wait for an answer to that. I'm guessing
my least favorite Godzilla. Are you talking about our favorite Matthew Broderick movie ever made?
Yes.
Yes. So here's the thing about that movie.
I knew this was going to go somewhere.
Yeah. As a giant monster movie, it's okay. As a Godzilla movie, not so much. That's not Godzilla. But as a giant monster movie, it's not that bad. Like, if they called it something else, it would have been an enjoyable big monster movie romp. It wouldn't have been great, but it would have been fun. But the fact that knowing in the back of your head that's supposed to be King of the Monsters, it just... But they have since incorporated that Godzilla into.
Yes, I was hoping you would mention this.
He's now... Well, first of all, in Godzilla Final Wars, where Godzilla basically went on a rampage and was just destroying every monster he ever fought, he fights that monster and that version of Godzilla, which they call Zilla now. And he knocks him with his tail into the Sydney Opera House and then blasts him in with his nuclear breath. Main Godzilla is Pseudomation, and the other Godzilla, Zilla, is now he's still CG, and so they purposely did that. He was like the one CG monster as an homage to his version his original appearance as a CG.
I thought they also made a reference to him in the movie about how he's just some overfed fish or something.
He's like, I knew that tuna eating lizard was terrible. It was something like that, but yes, it was very much a reference to that Godzilla. And he's since appeared in other things like comic books and stuff like that. Was there are quite a few comic books, Godzilla comics. I haven't read a ton of them, but
there's
they're really
Marvel
good.
owned him for a while, so he used to
he bought the Avengers.
Yeah, stuff like that.
He bought the Avengers, which was awesome. He fought Charles Barkley in the 90s.
Yeah, that is disturbingly true.
Yep. There was the commercial, and I thought it was going to be a real movie because I was like in second or third grade when that was going on, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Of course it wasn't. But they made a comic book, which I saw a video review of it, and it's hilariously bad.
So the new incarnation of Godzilla.
Yes.
We have Actually, I have a few different ones.
There's a couple of new Godzilla.
If you want to go over the new ones real quick.
So I'll start with Netflix Godzilla.
Yes.
There's sort of it was theatrically released, although I feel like they're considering almost like there's movie series, but I feel like it was being released. I don't know. Either way, there's like a series of movies in Japan that are being released, animated, about Godzilla. They're okay. Like, I know there's going to be more of them, so I'm excited to see where it goes, but it wasn't my favorite incarnation of him, but it was an interesting concept. It's somewhere we've never really gone with Godzilla. He takes over the world, and humans and these other aliens who leave for like a generation, but then they travel through almost light speed, and when they come back, like 10,000 years or 100,000 years or something like that has passed, and it's completely overrun, and Godzilla is like 1,000,000 feet tall or something like that. The biggest version of Godzilla by far there's ever been.
Yep.
So the next one is of course, the American version, the new American version, the legendary one. Actually, yes. I'll finish with that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
I'll go back a second. Shin Godzilla came out, directed by Hideki Anno, and I'm sure I got his name wrong. Who's the creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion?
Yeah.
Which is one of my it's probably my favorite anime series.
I still have not watched it,
and I need to let you borrow that.
You should.
You need to see it. It's amazing. But anyway, Shin Godzilla is the first time since the first 1954 movie that Godzilla has been terrifying. He is truly, I can't even say he's a force of nature. He is like pure chaos in monster form. And the way he's presented with the way he kind of evolves and his small beady eyes, it's like, I remember just watching it mesmerized. And there were a few parts of the movie where I was just like generally like on the edge of my seat, like, oh my gosh, this is intense.
Yeah.
So, and it's creepy and it's very weird, and I love it, and I highly recommend it.
The mouth.
The mouth when
thing.
He breathes his
atomic,
and I can't even say atomic breath because it's a very different incarnation of that, which is the most devastating by far. It's not like, oh, here's a blue little thing that coming out of
no, he like vomits out like flames for a little bit, and then
no, that's not even the part that like he's doing it, and then it like concentrates into a beam that he's like in the middle of Tokyo and he just moves his head and it slices like every skyscraper in half. It just cuts the entire city down by half. Like he's just destroying it. And I'm like, I remember seeing that part and going, oh, I like out loud was like, oh my God. Like,
yeah,
it was insane. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So I highly recommend Shin Godzilla to anyone. It got a very limited U.S. release.
It did.
I found out the week after that all these Alamo Draft houses were playing it, and it was like the Monday after. I was like, "Arr!" So, but I have it on Blu-ray. So.
I would say that one, if you're a fan of classic Godzilla,
yes.
where he's not like friend of people,
he's not friend of people. He's not even like the disgruntled guy, or even like the '90s Godzilla movies. He was like not really a friend of humans, but he was sort of like defending Earth because it's his home from other
I'm here. I guess I better do something about this. Oh, humans. Right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm helping you.
This is straight up like he is like chaos incarnate.
Yes.
So Shin Godzilla is great. You can get it on various places online that sell Blu-rays and DVDs. You can find it. Totally worth it. I want to go watch it now. Not all this talking about it. So I want to go watch it.
And now for the final one, which also brings us to our Comic-Con in reference
so the American Godzilla. I really like I know that a lot of people
the new American Godzilla.
Yeah, the new American Godzilla. Everyone's like, oh, I don't like the new American Godzilla. He was in the movie for like 5 minutes. I mean, he was in it for a little bit longer, but that's kind of Godzilla movies. Like if you think about it, there's so many Godzilla movies where it's like humans doing boring stuff, and then Godzilla shows up, and that's the part we all want to see.
We're talking about the era of their ways.
Yes. But
humans, not Godzilla. He's fine.
Well, there was that one time he kind of was like, maybe I don't know, maybe I should reflect on my city stomping ways. But I enjoy it. I love that everyone's like, oh, the whole Marvel started this trend of trying to create cinematic universes.
Yes.
Not that they're the first ones to do it, because honestly,
not.
Godzilla did it first.
Yep.
And there was probably other ones. I mean, honestly, the Universal horror movies all kind of did that even before Godzilla with theirs, which they tried to do the new one, the new Universal horror movies.
Yeah,
that's
that's a thing.
Yeah, or it was a thing. But I mean, they're doing this again, and I love Godzilla 2014. I loved Kong. I thought Kong was fantastic last year, and that's going to lead into a conflict which people have wanted to see for decades.
Yep.
But that's 2020. So we're talking about 2019. Godzilla, King of the Monsters. We're getting Mothra. We're getting Rodan. We're getting King Ghidorah. We saw that full, awesome, amazing trailer out of Comic-Con, which is the other trailer that I saw before I was getting ready to go to bed, and I ended up watching like 5 times.
So for that one, do you think that we've seen all the monsters, or do you think there's going to be?
I think there's going to be more. I feel like we know we're going to get those big four. I mentioned earlier Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Rodan. They're kind of the big four for the big monsterverse. But I think we're going to get some more. Whether it's established Toho monsters, or they're going to do like the Mutos from Godzilla 2014, and they create some original ones. I'm not sure, but either way,
I think if there's
totally down for more monsters.
My guess, if there's Mutos, they're going to be cannon fodder to show how big and bad these other ones are.
The other ones are, yes. Yeah. But there's obviously a whole menagerie of Godzilla monsters and Toho monsters that they could do. Obviously, this is all leading up to Kong versus Godzilla, which is, there was the third Godzilla movie ever was where he fought King Kong. And people have wanted it, but because of rights, they haven't been able to do it. But they wanted this rematch since the 60s, and we're finally getting it. However, they have said that there's going to be some breadcrumbs leading to that throughout this movie, but I would love for Kong to come in at some point in this. Just totally like out of that to me.
Take out one of the other monsters.
No. Like as a sort of like so. Okay, so in King Ghidorah, in the movie Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, Godzilla and Rodan and Mothra have to team up to defeat King Ghidorah, and I'm wondering if that's kind of the route they're going with this movie. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, I almost want it to be like King Ghidorah is so powerful that even the combined might of these three just can't do it. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this roar and this giant ape fist just boom, and Kong comes in. But then it's not like, oh, you're saving the day. I see Godzilla seeing him as, oh, I had to be saved by this giant gorilla. Great. And I hope their movie comes into them just having this rivalry, and they got to prove who's got the biggest Kaiju cojones. Kaijones. Something like that.
All right. I mean, we've kind of gone over, what recommendations you would have movie-wise and everything. Godzilla is something I've always enjoyed, but I'm not like I'm aware of some stuff, but I'm not like a connoisseur to the extent definitely not the extent you are. The new series, the new movie I did like. It is disappointing that he's only in it for a little bit, but at the same time, the time he's there, it is this they're golden moments on the screen.
Absolutely.
So I'm also very excited about the announcement out of Comic-Con and everything like that. So I'm definitely waiting for that myself. Is there anything else you want to say on Godzilla before we wrap up?
So actually, I want to mention a YouTube channel, and
All right.
if you're not a Godzilla fan, you can enjoy it, but being a Godzilla fan will, more so than Dragon Ball Z Abridged, being a Godzilla fan will, I think, give you better appreciation. But this channel is called Monster Island Buddies. I discovered this channel New Year's Day 2012. I had a huge, horrific hangover, and I don't know, I was browsing YouTube, just trying to anything to take my mind off of it, and somehow I ended up on this channel. And this guy uses Godzilla action figures, and he does these little short pieces with them. And the first one started out very you're pulling it up. So it started up as these kind of one-offs where it was like the monsters just kind of living their lives, but he gives them voices. So Godzilla's the main hero. He's kind of the gruff lug with a big heart, but doesn't necessarily know what to do. Rodan's very neurotic. You've got Mechagodzilla, who's like a hipster. You've got he gives these distinct personalities to all the monsters. Well, as he started doing these episodes, he started doing this serialized story that lasted 100 episodes. And he did it in seasons. He tells a legitimately awesome multi-season arc that really culminates into one thing. Very much like Futurama, he does callbacks to things that happened in the first episode. There's time travel involved where he goes back to the first episode, or where the monsters go back. After episode 100, he kind of did a relaunch of the channel. This was about a year ago. And he still is doing episodes, he's on to episode 110 or something like that.
Actually, the 110 one is the one I pulled up right now.
And these are sort of smaller arcs, but they're very comedic, but he tells a legitimately good story. But he also does reviews and stuff of Godzilla media, like video games, comic books, books, and general kaiju stuff in general. I really, really recommend the channel. The episodes range anywhere from 3 to 15 minutes. I think you said you pulled one up that was about 15 minutes or something like that. 15, something like that.
Yeah,
those are some of the longest ones, but those are kind of more the outliers. Highly recommend it. Go check out his channel. It's one of my favorites. Anytime I see my feed and I see Monster Island Buddies, I am click. There we go. So awesome. I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on Tales from the Fandom today.
Yes.
It was definitely a pleasure to have you on to discuss this stuff.
Pleasure is all mine.
To help out David, of course, by doing this takeover
David, thank you for having me.
But if people want to find more from you, where are some of the best places to do that besides checking out the Zeng This Podcast?
Oh yes, of course, you can find me on the Zeng This Podcast. You all may have heard of it. And
every now and then,
every now and then
you pop up every.
Yeah, I like to. Anytime Nintendo's in the news, I try to make an appearance.
You and Phil Root are the bane of our existence.
Yeah, it's true. Let's see. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter under just Aric Berg, ARICBERG. Twitter, I'm kind of I'll go in waves. I'll retweet a bunch, and then I'm kind of silent on there. Instagram, I'm a little more active on. Same thing though. I go in waves, but a little more regularly. I might post a bunch of pictures, look at this cool amiibo I got, and then all of a sudden you might not see something for a few weeks. But I'm on there. Feel free to check me out. Give me a follow. Say, hey, I heard you talking about Fandom, and I'll be like, hey, cool. Thanks for listening. Sorry, I mumbled a lot and talked a lot, and Zenger and I geeked out a lot.
Yeah,
I apologize.
It's likely to happen.
But yeah, look for me there, and hope to hear from you all and like my stuff. I need those likes. Please tell me you like me.
Well, I'm sure you can find links to those in the description for this episode. Once again, I am Zenger from the Zeng This Podcast, which is a pop culture nerdy goodness podcast where every Monday we have tons of different topics on different pop culture stuff, whether it's movie discussions of currently we're doing the Harry Potter series. So you can check that out, or we also do stuff.
What's Harry Potter? I've never heard of it before. Is that that singer?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it is, to move this conversation along.
Yes, I figured as
But
much.
no, we have tons of different nerdy topics talking about video games, comics, movies, TV shows, basically anything nerdy.
If it's nerdy, this guy covers it.
We would try to, and you're on every now and then. David's also on every now and then. So definitely check out the Zeng This Podcast.
Maybe there'll be a big crossover one day, and David and I will be on the same episode.
Man, that would be an episode.
Marvel will be like, this is the most ambitious crossover in history, and then you're like, Zeng This Podcast.
Yeah, right below it. Right below it. Just a hair below it. Anyways, thank you for giving us this opportunity. Of course, if you want to check out the Zeng This Podcast, that is spelled Zeng this, and that will probably be in the description as well. Once again, thanks for tuning in to Tales from the Fandom.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.